Morning, glory, America. Hugh Hewitt back inside the Beltway. Why am I playing Badfinger? The question of the morning. What could that possibly have to do with my return to the Beltway? Does anybody know? Does Dwayne know? Does Adam know? Does the formerly employed? Oh, you do know. Adam has a guess. What is it, Adam?
Well, it would be a spoiler alert for a certain show.
Well, that's okay. You don't have to say how it ends. You don't have to say how the show ends. You can just say it's the last
Closing
music.
credits of Breaking Bad.
It's the last song in Breaking Bad. Because my shutdown project among them has been to finally watch Breaking Bad. And because I led the advance party and the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt follows, she spent yesterday with her sister. I had Sunday to myself. So I had like the perfect Sunday in a Beltway. I've got bad news and good news and different sorts of breaking news today, but I had like the perfect Sunday in the Beltway without my wife, meaning that it would have been better had the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt been here, but she wasn't there. She comes after me. And so the Sunday that I had was to watch an episode of Breaking Bad, take a 4-mile walk through the beautiful Virginia countryside, which is in full bloom. This is the best time of the year in Virginia, April and May, and maybe September and October, but they're basically 4 months of the year when it's actually a beautiful city in which to live. The Beltway total, Virginia and downtown. Remnants of the cherry blossoms around. They're almost all gone. And came back, finished Breaking Bad finally, which is where Baby Blue comes in at the end. You wouldn't understand unless you've seen the show, but it's a great way to end it. No spoiler alert here. It's certainly in the top 5 television shows ever made. And then to go over and watch the Masters with my son and daughter-in-law, and watch Hideki Matsuyama. I love the Masters. I'm a complete and utter, amateurs only get one slot, so it's never been for me to be the low amateur there. But I love watching. I love everything about the Masters, and I did not see Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred. I guess he's boycotting Georgia. He's a member of Augusta, but of course he hates Georgia. And Major League Baseball is now a blue sport, even though my Indians are atop the Central Division, having swept the Tigers, which is something we have on endless loop, having swept the Tigers. And so, having swept the Tigers, the Indians are on top of Major League Baseball Central. And then I watched Matsuyama, and my son says, I'm not much of a golf fan, so I put $20 on Matsuyama at the beginning of the day. And internet gambling is now legal in Virginia, and I frown on it. But I understand a non-golfer who has to watch it with me trying to make it interesting. And I said, oh, that's not going to work. He has never been day 4 at Amen Corner. He had a 5-shot lead when I got over there to watch it. 5-shot lead. And he wins by 1. And it's a little bit, that's closer than it was because he could have, he had a 2-putt from 4 feet, which I could have turned into a 4-putt, but not Matsuyama. And it's just kind of neat that the first Japanese golfer ever wins in this year. I just think it's so great with fear over anti-Asian prejudice in the United States being part of the narrative from the left. I don't think there is much of it. There are some knuckleheads always on the left and the right who are racist, but I think they're a very tiny minority in the United States, and I am concerned about attacks on any Asian American or any minority. I'm always concerned about violence against anyone and condemn it. But the cheering he got and the enormous applause from the American public is great, and I'm glad that the Japanese public and Asian Americans everywhere and Japanese Americans saw that. He's such a class guy, no English, but very, very classy exit. Very, very classy thing. Then I got to watch Mandalorian, which I haven't watched. I've saved Mandalorian for my return to the Beltway because I am kind of like the Mandalorian of the radio. I know many people say you are the Ted Lasso of talk radio, but I am sort of the Mandalorian of the radio. And I've been using my Mandalorian-like abilities on corporate America, going blue, Coca-Cola becoming a blue soft drink, and Delta becoming a blue airline. Did not fly Delta. Did not fly Delta. I had a choice, so I didn't fly Delta. Didn't drink Coca-Cola products. I had a choice. Watch some baseball. I won't spend any money on baseball until Manfred's gone. Faye Vincent, their former commissioner, came out and basically said, "You moron." And everybody associated with the game is saying, "You moron, why did you get us in the middle of this? We want no part of your politics." And they're Rob Manfred's politics. Coca-Cola leaned on him and he folded up. And then, and only then, after the perfect Saturday, I go to work on my studio. Leave, go to the studio. And go to work on the studio, and Dwayne has broken it. There is a voice compressor, which is part of the elaborate thingamajig, which connects to the elaborate Comrex, which connects to the elaborate thingamajig 2, and the voice compressor is blown again. And honestly, if Dwayne would send me one good voice compressor, I spent hours wiring the studio, hours and hours putting it together, and he keeps sending me like the third repair job voice compressor, and the fourth and the fifth. And so I have him on the phone last night trying to walk him through his end. He can't even connect, and it's a terrible thing. And he calls his wife in to berate me. Dwayne, wasn't your wife there? By the way, I'm in Seb Gorka's studio this morning, if you're tuned in on YouTube, and you'll see two things. One, you'll see Seb Gorka's studio. Thank you, Seb. And you'll see that my next stop today is to get a haircut. I've got COVID hair, and I didn't even bother this morning. I didn't even try and hide it because it's ridiculous. It's the most hair I've ever had. So did Mrs. Radio Blogger enjoy berating me along with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Evidence. She got to witness what I have to put up with every day.
No, what you have to put up, you broke it again. You sent me a third-rate, broken-down voice compressor that could not take a little bit of an energy surge. It fries out every 6 months. Honestly, poor Jeff Matska has to come over to the studio and bring me a new voice compressor because you won't spring for a real one.
And you know what Jeff doesn't call it? An actual engineer, do you know what Jeff actually calls it? He doesn't call it a compressor.
I don't know what kind of a diversion tactic you're attempting.
It's a voice processor.
Yeah, well, you're diverting from the obvious problem that you have sent me. Where do you go? Do you go to the thrift shop of radio equipment? Is that where you get your voice?
Because there are lots
pressers.
Because there are lots of radio
thrift shops. I assume it's on the
compressors.
internet. I assume that you bill me X and it really costs X minus $100, and that you're out to dinner.
I'm sure that's the case.
Because honestly, this is like the sixth one we've gone through. Can I get a new one?
Well, if your studio there didn't have the continued power supply of Beirut on a Thursday night, things would be a little bit better, and it wouldn't fry.
Do not. Glenn Youngkin's going to fix that when he's governor of Virginia. All right, let me get to the real news here. There was a terrible bit of news yesterday, which I want to tell you about, which I think is going to be a lot of news for the rest of the week. You may not have known this, but yesterday in Minneapolis, to be specific, Brooklyn Center, police, this is during the Derek Chauvin trial, the man who murdered George Floyd. Yesterday afternoon, police fatally shot a man after a traffic stop in suburban Minneapolis, reading from the Washington Post story, sparking clashes between hundreds of protesters and officers in an area where tensions are already high. It was a riot. Not protest, it was a riot. The victim's family identified him as 20-year-old Dante Wright. Hours after the shooting, hundreds of protesters surrounded the police headquarters and clashed with officers in riot gear, that would be a riot, who fired flashbangs and tear gas. The Minnesota National Guard, which is deployed to the Twin Cities for the Chauvin trial, later has tried to assist the police as numerous businesses in the area were broken into. The shooting happened before 2 p.m. when the officer stopped the car. The man drove for several blocks before striking another vehicle. He was shot while stopped. He got back into the car after he got out of the car. They found he had an outstanding warrant. They tried to arrest him. He got back into the car. I don't know how this happened. I haven't seen the video yet. And he's a black man. Brooklyn Center is about 10 miles northwest of downtown Minneapolis, where the murder trial is underway. So it's going to be a great week in the Twin Cities. Just a great week. When we come back, I'll fill you in on the rest of the news. Montreal, they've shut Montreal down again because Canada, remember the Canadian great medical system that we're supposed to live in awe of? It's broken. Stay tuned, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Calling new Biden legislation an infrastructure plan is like calling a shark a dolphin. They both may have dorsal fins, but you mistake one for the other at your peril. Don't be fooled. Only 5% of the bill's spending would actually go for roads and bridges, what normal people think of as infrastructure. Add in items like Amtrak and broadband, and you're still only at 30% of the eye-popping total of $2.3 trillion. And you're supposed to pay for all of this with the biggest tax increase since 1968. Here's what's worse. The bill is actually about leftist social engineering. It would end right to work, something the left hates because it guarantees no one can be forced to join a union or pay union dues in order to hold a job. Ending it offers a rich new source of campaign contributions for Democrats. Calling a shark a dolphin doesn't make it one. I'm Carol Platt-Liebau.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Holding in my baby brown libertarian fingers an article from the Daily Mail. This is the headline. Outgoing CNN anchor Brooke Baldwin rails against network about lack of women in leadership, saying, quote, the most influential and highest paid anchors are men, close quote, just months after she was temporarily taken off the air and replaced by Jake Tapper. And it goes on and talks about how she's expected to leave this month. And she gave an interview with Ms. Magazine. I had no idea Ms. Magazine was still being published. Is it still being published? Wow. I should start subscribing. I had no idea. Again. Ms. Magazine, she said, quote, the most influential anchors on our network, the highest paid, are men. My bosses, my executives, are men. The person who oversees CNN Dayside is a man. And my executive producer for 10 years is a man. So I've been surrounded by a lot of men. End of quote. And your complaint is that they smell bad, that they don't shower, they don't put the toilet seat down. What's your complaint? Quote, I know personally I fight for women's stories, but I get told no a lot, and I still manage to do it. End of quote. There's a lot more I need to do outside the walls of this place, close quote. So she's leaving CNN, says CNN is sexist, the same organization that for 4 years referred to President Donald Trump as sexist.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
Unlike the history of the United States, we now are guided by the frightened. The frightened make policy. That's the difference. It's the opposite of the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. All right, Joseph in Baltimore, Maryland. Hello.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi.
You admitted on Tuesday that Israel's done the exact opposite of everything you recommended.
Right.
They've had 6,000 deaths. They have 36 times fewer people. 36 times 6,000 is 220,000. They have almost a third the number of deaths we have. From which I would draw the conclusion that everything you recommended is wrong.
Well, how do you answer this? I looked it up, seeing your call. I looked up the list of countries. 150 countries have fewer deaths per million than Israel. So why do you pick Israel versus the U.S. and not Israel versus the 150 countries, 150 that did better than Israel and didn't do what Israel did?
Well, your recommendations were for the
Wait, please answer my question. I thought I answered yours. You compare
No,
Israel only to the U.S. I compare Israel to all other countries. I think that that's more
Because
scientifically.
you've admitted yourself that countries that are homogenous, like Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, aren't comparable. You
Right.
don't compare the United States to South Korea. Israel's in
Right, but I didn't. I said 150 countries. They're not all homogeneous. Okay, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
They
Go
gave
ahead.
away all their hydroxychloroquine.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt, the Mandalorian of the radio. I know you like to call me the Ted Lasso of talk radio, but whenever I'm watching the Mandalorian, it just is the same. I mean it that way. Let me check out the markets for you on this Monday morning as you're going back to work across America, because we've had a vaccine rollout thanks to Operation Warp Speed. Unlike Canada, where Montreal had a sort of a riot last night because they shut down again because Justin Trudeau couldn't find his way out of a closet and is a very, very, very incompetent prime minister, though his boyish good looks have won him 3 elections. He's Justin Trudeau's son. That's why he's the Prime Minister of Canada, and they have such a screwed up, they make the European Union look good. Thus far, the 3 countries in the world that have managed a vaccine rollout with something like the speed of an advanced society are Israel, which wins, Great Britain, which is in 3rd place, and the silver medal goes to the United States because of Operation Warp Speed begun by Donald Trump. Now, the world knows it's going to have a complete sonic boom of an economy in the United States, which will pull everyone along. Why? Because on top of $4 trillion, we spent another $2 trillion, and Joe Biden wants to spend $2 trillion more. And whether or not he spends that $2 trillion, it's a lot of stimulus. It's more stimulus than we've ever had before. The biggest problem restaurants are going to have is not getting customers indoors. It's going to be finding anybody to work there. Because of the unemployment situation, the benefits, you can make more money on unemployment than working in the restaurant. But I'll tell you, Virginia was hopping yesterday, and I think that the entire country is reopening. And my Uber driver this morning, he's been vaccinated, I've been vaccinated, everybody's vaccinated. And so watch for, I've got one Wall Street Journal story, which I got to get you the headline on because it is so apropos of what we have. Sizzling stock market sets high bar for earnings season. The stock market is running hot entering first quarter earnings session. Investors will watch for clues about future profits as they consider pricey shares. What's the only cloud on the horizon? Inflation. Okay, so what do you do with inflation? You hedge. You either get real estate or you buy gold. You buy your gold if you're going to buy gold from Birch Gold. Birch Gold can be found at hughgold.com. Or you can text my name, Hugh, to 474747. All right, just send HUGH to 474747, and they will send you the free information pack. Or you can go to birchgold.com and ask for the free information pack. They do 2 things. They sell you gold, and I bought my gold from Birch Gold, and I may buy more this year, because Birch Gold, gold at $1,741 an ounce is a great entry point. It was below 1,700 2 weeks ago, and it's going to just keep climbing. 10-year Treasury is at 1.666 this morning, just a touch up over the weekend. And Europe and England have opened well. Germany's up a little bit, France is up a little bit, England's down a little bit. Japan is off 3/4 of a point today, and that's, I think, because they're all out celebrating the Masters win. But gold is your inflation hedge if you can't go buy some dirt. You can't buy a house or a rental property, and that's not an avenue open to you, and you want to make sure you're hedged against inflation, get gold. Now, the only thing don't have any cash. Obviously, you got to keep 3 months of cash reserve around if you have that ability to do so, but that cash is going to go down in value every day that inflation goes up. You cannot spend this much money. There isn't an economist in the world who believes they might keep interest rates low. That will simply cause, I read on the plane back to the Beltway, the hottest housing market in history. Now, why is that? That's because there is no supply. It's not funny money loans. It's not 2007 when you could stumble in reeking of rye and bourbon to a mortgage company and they would give you a 100% loan on a teaser rate that would adjust every 3 months until it was 12%. That's not this. They don't want to give anyone any money. They make you jump through more hoops unless it's andrewandtodd.com. It's very hard to get a loan. So this is a very, very tight money supply. There's just no houses to buy. And so if you can't buy a house, you buy gold from Birch Gold. And you can find Birch Gold at hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, to 474747. When we come back, gosh, I love Dr. Fauci. And yesterday he was out confusing people again. I'll fix the damage right after this. Stay tuned.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
Now, on the Mike Gallagher Show.
He's made a very big deal about ghost guns, homemade guns, as you said, that cannot be traced. I didn't realize there was a rash of ghost guns used in these high-profile mass killings that Biden referenced. Are these massacres in Charleston and in Colorado and all these terrible scenes? Are those all with people who made their guns at home?
No, Mike, you're right. These aren't people who have produced their own firearms in their own homes. We're talking about, in many of these instances, are failures of people to either enact on the laws that are available to them, or the authorities who fail to take action when they were supposed to. So if we look at the most recent murders in Boulder, Colorado, we see that Colorado already has red flag laws. We see that the family was already concerned about the mental disturbance of the individual who's accused of these crimes, to the point where they actually took the firearm away from him at one point, and he obviously got that back and committed his heinous crimes. But they could have reached out and they could have used the red flag laws available to them there, and they didn't. We look at the Pulse nightclub shootings. In fact, the FBI knew about that and they didn't act. In fact, that was a terror attack and was not just an indiscriminate killing at a nightclub. If we look at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, we know that the FBI was warned twice. We know that the city, state, and county officials have been warned over 40 times that there was concerns with this individual, and they never acted upon those. So what we're talking about is a failure of the system to actually work in the way it's supposed to, because people were either too afraid or because authorities didn't act when they were warned to. This is not an issue of so-called ghost guns. And what part of the issue is that these are being conflated a lot of times with firearms that show up at a crime scene with the serial numbers obliterated.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
You see, the people that perpetually want more power for themselves, they crisis hop. They hop from one crisis to the other. The environmental crisis, the Chinese coronavirus crisis. A crisis allows you to justify a power grab. There's nothing quite like a crisis that makes you feel more self-important and act like a totalitarian. A crisis generally means that the public will give up their freedoms and liberties. There's something even deeper going on here, though. As the CDC director says racism is a serious public health threat, they are now blending two of their most effective strategies. The fact that Americans will not question the science when it comes from anything from the CDC, despite the fact the CDC has lied to you about basically everything over the last year. The CDC has been wrong about almost everything, contributing to a serious mental health crisis, a suicide epidemic, alcoholism, drug usage, self-worth issues with young people, 40% of small businesses being closed, and the lockdowns did nothing. Let me say that again. The lockdowns did nothing to actually improve the well-being of our country. But the CDC now knows that Americans would rather be safe than free, and that safetyism is the predominant viewpoint in America. And they also know that Americans will not challenge this idea that America is systemically racist. Just won't.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Why is it that we have to wait is this so often the case for a British tabloid newspaper to report the story of Hunter Biden for anybody to take notice?
Because our media just aren't interested. Our media want to protect the Bidens. They want to protect liberals, most of the media, and they just aren't. They're not honest brokers, right? We knew the contents of this laptop in September and October.
Yeah.
This should have been out and out everywhere. But what do we have instead? Instead, we had the New York Post being blocked from Twitter. Instead, we had CNN and others suggesting that Hunter Biden's own laptop that he signed over was somehow Russian disinformation. Absolute nonsense.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Calling new Biden legislation an infrastructure plan is like calling a shark a dolphin. They both may have dorsal fins, but you mistake one for the other at your peril. Don't be fooled. Only 5% of the bill's spending would actually go for roads and bridges, what normal people think of as infrastructure. Add in items like Amtrak and broadband, and you're still only at 30% of the eye-popping total of $2.3 trillion. And you're supposed to pay for all of this with the biggest tax increase since 1968. Here's what's worse. The bill is actually about leftist social engineering. It would end right to work, something the left hates because it guarantees no one can be forced to join a union or pay union dues in order to hold a job. Ending it offers a rich new source of campaign contributions.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt back inside the Beltway, vaccinated and traveling again, ready to roll. Borrowing Seb Gorka's studio this morning, and if you are watching on my YouTube channel, you'll say, get a haircut. And I agree, get a haircut. I've had 3 haircuts in a year, each done by the fetching Mrs. Hewitt. She's not bad at it, but it's not ideal right now. And my barber is reopened. Now, I am of the old school when it comes to barbers. They have to be over 65. I prefer that they can't hear well and that they talk a lot and that it's a 12-minute deal. 12-minute haircut, $12 haircut, 12-minute haircut. That's, and if they're named Curly, that's a bonus. But Jim and Jeff were my barbers forever. Dwayne, what's the name of your barber?
Louis.
Louis. Okay, Louis would go too. I don't know the name of my barber inside the Beltway, but he does get it done in under 12 minutes. And people say it shows, but I don't care. It's short when it's done. But if you're looking right now, I'm going to walk in and his eyes are going to get wide, and he's going to say, "Have a seat," and he's going to get out the shears that they use on lawn hedges. Yeah, yes. It's basically. It's a crown of silver. Now, I'm going to be able to go in without a mask, and I assume since he's ancient, he's going to not have a mask and be vaccinated. But yet, there was Dr. Fauci. Now, I like Dr. Fauci a lot. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago. He'd been on the show before. I'm not one of those conservatives that hate on Dr. Fauci, because the official toxicologist of the Hugh Hewitt show has told me repeatedly he's just relaying whatever the state of the science is, and the state of the science has changed a lot and will continue to change a lot as they learn a lot about an emerging virus that nobody knew about a year ago, and which the Chinese destroyed the originating data on or hid it, so it took a long time to figure it out. But he's just reflecting advice that changes. But now I know what the advice is, and I've read widely, and this is just, well, first of all, let's play Governor Greg Abbott on Fox News with Chris Wallace yesterday says this, cut number 3.
We absolutely are not declaring victory at this time. We remain very vigilant and guarded and proactive in our response, but there's simple math behind the reason why we still continue to have success. Yesterday, we had the second lowest number of hospitalizations in 10 months. We have the fourth lowest positivity rate in a year and the highest number of vaccinations ever administered, exceeding now 14 million.
Sir?
It's because when you add all the number of vaccinations that have taken place, as well as all of the acquired immunity from all of the Texans who have been exposed and recovered from COVID-19, it means very simply it's a whole lot more difficult for COVID-19 to be spreading to other people in the state of Texas. And I got to add this real quick, Chris, and that is we did an excellent job of vaccinating our senior population that's most vulnerable to getting COVID-19.
Real quick, do you think that you have herd immunity in Texas now?
When you look at the senior population, for example, more than 70% of our seniors have received a vaccine shot. More than 50% of those who are 50 to 65 have received a vaccine shot. I don't know what herd immunity is, but when you add that to the people who have acquired immunity, it looks like it could be very close to herd immunity.
All right, so I like that. That's upbeat. And by the way, the message is go get vaccinated if you haven't been vaccinated. Every state is open to every age over the age of 16. Go get vaccinated. Now, I got Pfizer 1 and 2, and I had 36 hours of fatigue and a little bit of chills and nothing that was like a mild case of the flu for me. And other people have no effect like the fetching Mr. Hewitt, and other people have a worse flu. But no one's had a bad effect, and people stay for 15 minutes. I haven't seen both times no one had any kind of effect. Get vaccinated because then you can roam around, take an Uber wherever you want to go in and have dinner, have lunch, whatever. Outside, you don't have to wear a mask at all. If you're indoors, you might wear a mask to make other people feel better until you sit down at your table. We had dinner on Thursday night with a couple of couples that were older than us, and no one wore a mask. They wore a mask on the way into the restaurant just to make people feel better. It's kind of a neighborly thing to do. To make people feel better, even if you're vaccinated. But we're there, and we got to keep there. And I read the bad news. There's one Israeli study that says the South African variant gets past the Pfizer second shot more than it should. Okay, so I'm at a little bit more risk than I thought I was, but I don't think I'm at much risk at all if people keep getting vaccinated. So then arrived Dr. Fauci on MSNBC with Mehdi Hassan and says a couple of things. First of all, cut number 8.
Well, I would just get back to what the president said even before he was inaugurated, that we need a universal wearing of masks. He said for at least 100 days, it may well go beyond 100 days. Everyone should be wearing a mask. They should avoid congregate settings. They should keep their distance, and they should wash their hands as often as possible. We are not out of this yet. We had 80,000 new infections the other day. Now's not the time to declare victory prematurely. We have not won this yet. We will win it, but we haven't won it yet.
Okay, now that's perfectly fine. The president did say 100 days before he was elected, and it's almost 100 days since he said that. And I still wear a mask when I go to sit down in a restaurant and when I'm indoors. I went to the Safeway yesterday, wore my mask because all the help there are wearing masks. You want to assure them, right? It's not about me. I can't get sick. I've been vaccinated. And the risk of my getting sick is about the risk of my getting hit by a car. And that happens. You ever walk around Virginia? That happens a lot. The way people drive in Virginia, the roads are built for the Revolutionary War and they haven't been improved. Another reason to vote for Glenn Youngkin for governor is because Northern Virginia roads have not been, well, they might have been improved after the 1812 invasion by the Brits. But it's been since then. And the Civil War, they made some new roads for the Union troops marching down to Richmond. But since then, they haven't built any new roads. And so that's Northern Virginia. So you might, Glenn Youngkin. We can't let Terry McAuliffe back here because he was governor once before he didn't build any roads. I don't know why you'd let him be governor again. It's the only thing that matters to Virginians are guns and roads. And really, that's it. And Virginia is, in the Wall Street Journal survey, the most popular place for people to retire to in the United States. It's number one because the taxes are low and they leave you alone. Most of now Democrats got elected and they're running the state, but Virginia Democrats are not like California Democrats. Virginia Democrats are more like John F. Kennedy Democrats, most of them. And Ralph Northam, last seen wearing a Ku Klux Klan headdress in his medical school photo, has been rather unobtrusive since then. But Terry McAuliffe, oh, spare me. If I had a producer, I'd play what Terry McAuliffe thinks of me. Because Terry McAuliffe thinks of me what I do not think of him. Terry McAuliffe esteems me, so he's not going to like the fact that I'm out there working for Glenn Youngkin every day. So Anthony Fauci gives a first good swing at the bat. But here he is, and he goes off the rails, cut number 9.
No, it's still not okay for the simple reason that the level of infection, the dynamics of infection in the community are still really disturbingly high. Like just yesterday, there were close to 80,000 new infections, and we've been hanging around 60, 70, 75,000. So if you're not vaccinated, please get vaccinated as soon as vaccine becomes available to you. And if you are vaccinated, please remember that you still have to be careful and not get involved in crowded situations, particularly indoors where people are not wearing masks. And for the time being, until we show definitively that a person who's vaccinated does not get the subclinical infection and can spread to others, you should also continue to wear a mask for the time being.
This is nuts. This is bad advice. This is not good public health advice. The key public health objective right now is to get people to get vaccinated. The message Tony Fauci just gave is that it doesn't matter if you get vaccinated, you can't live your life. That's not true. If you get vaccinated, you can go to a restaurant. You don't have to wear a mask at dinner. You can fly on an airline. They ask you to wear a mask. I did as a courtesy to others, but you are not at risk. And you can go indoors. You can walk into a bar. If you're vaccinated, you're fine. And that is clinically shown. That's the science. What he refers to is a mythical possibility that some people who have been vaccinated might get, remember, you know that word subclinical? That means like a tiny, tiny little chance that you might still get the vaccine. You might get the virus, and we can't tell because you've got vaccination, so we don't know you've got it, and you might be able to give it to someone. There's no science for that. That's their worst case scenario. And that is contra getting people to get the vaccine because it sends the message, why get a vaccine? You get a vaccine so you can renew your ordinary life. Go get the vaccine. I'm very in favor of getting the vaccine. The more people get the vaccine, we drive down the new case numbers. The new case numbers are not coming from people who are vaccinated. People who are vaccinated can go back to their normal life. They may want to wear a mask. They have to wear a mask on an airline. And I think that is generally for people's comfort level, not your own. You're fine. The plane might crash, but you're not going to get COVID if you've been vaccinated. All right, that's just not a risk. Other people are close. You're just trying to keep them calm. You don't need to make a statement about you got a vaccine. They don't have a vaccine. Don't be that guy. But honestly, Dr. Fauci, you can't keep stepping on your story. Your story is, if you get the vaccine, life goes back to normal. That's the story. That's the truth. And they've just, honestly, he doesn't know anything about messaging after a full year. He does not know anything about messaging. John Thune knows about messaging. He gave a message yesterday about the border, which I want you to hear. Cut number 1.
I think restore funding to build a wall. The Border Patrol down there says how critical that is to border security. I think restoring the MPP, the Migrant Protection Plan, which was essentially a program which was essentially keeping those who are seeking asylum in Mexico until such time as their cases can be heard and adjudicated. Now we're bringing everybody into the United States. We don't have the capacity to hear those cases, and so they're being released and told to come back back at a later time, and most don't. So, I mean, there were policies in place under the previous administration, Trump policies, that were effective and that were working. This administration made a decision early on. We want to do opposite of what President Trump did. They were warned by the Border Patrol in advance that if you do these things, this is what's going to happen. This is now what's happened. We've got the highest number of people coming illegally across the border that we've seen in 15 years. So
that is exactly the right message. Put the Trump policies back and finish the wall, and we will not have this problem. Time for me to tell you about ReliefFactor.com, but I'm in Seb's studio. Now, it's a ReliefFactor.com studio, but he does not keep a bag of Relief Factor around. I am kind of shocked, Seb Gorka. He takes his at home. I leave mine in the studio, and I take it on air every day, but I'm going to have to wait till I get home and use my home supply. Seb Gorka, where's your ReliefFactor.com bag? Just because, you know, Dwayne did not supply Seb with, honestly, I'm working solo here. And ReliefFactor.com, $19.95 gets you a 3-week starter pack. Luckily, I've got bags and bags and bags of it at home, and I'll take it when I get home. But Dwayne has sent me into the world without my ReliefFactor.com this morning. $19.95 gets you started. Salena Zito is next. She's a ReliefFactor.com guest. Seb, where's your bag? I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Headline, and I'm quoting, 2 CBS TV executives are fired after one called a black TV anchor just a jive guy, and the other called a female employee an effing idiot. Peter Dunn, president of CBS television stations, and David Friend, senior VP for news at the stations, were ousted on Wednesday. I'm laughing because polls show that 83% of Democrats believe that Donald Trump is a racist. 83%. This guy is calling a black TV anchor just a jive guy while reporting how racist Donald Trump is. Can't make this up.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Well, if I don't quote the Journal of the American Medical Association to substantiate a point I make, then people like you call up and say you have no scientific basis. So if I quote them, oh, Dennis, you're not honest because you don't always trust them. But if I don't quote them, Dennis, you have no. You have,
they said ivermectin was worthless.
Yes, and it is to. It will be to their everlasting, death-creating discredit that they did so. That is what I believe.
They're a fraud. They're a fraud.
In this regard, they have been fraudulent.
When they agree with you, then they're
no. There are areas I have no. Okay, on this, on ivermectin. Okay, that's right. I believe it's fraudulent. That is exactly correct, my friend. That is right. Just as I did on inanimate objects, spreading the disease. I've turned out right, and I live by it. I'm on ivermectin. Okay, an unbelievably safe thing. That these people prefer to put people on ventilators than give them ivermectin early has created in me a contempt for the Journal of the American Medical Association and the New England Journal of Medicine and the medical profession that I never had before. Better to go on a ventilator than take ivermectin early. These people are killing Americans. There are epidemiologists I have had on this show from Yale and elsewhere who believe that hundreds of thousands of Americans are dead because of the medical profession. I agree with that. That's worse than fraud. That's homicide. Get it?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I will ask for your reaction to the president's promise that nothing he recommended impinges on the Second Amendment.
Well, he has a very, I guess, unique interpretation of what the Second Amendment is then. If we're looking at the infringement upon the Second Amendment and the government trying to pass any kind of restrictions on that, I certainly think
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway in Seb Gorka's studio because mine blew up again. I am talking with Salena Zito, columnist for the New York Post and the Washington Examiner. And I have good news and bad news, Salena.
What?
Well, the good news is the Pirates aren't the worst team in the National League. The Washington Nationals are. But the bad news is they're pretty awful.
I wouldn't know. I'm not watching.
Well, I'm watching. I'm just not buying. I won't buy any merch and I won't buy any tickets, but I'll watch. That's my mini boycott. I don't encourage people to do whatever they want. Rob Manfred is the villain here, not your pathetic Pirates. But it's a good year to not watch because let me tell you, they're bad.
Well, I have been unhappy with my Pirates for a couple of years, was beginning with selling off the entire team, beginning with Andrew McCutchen.
Well, they did do that. They did do that. They did do that.
Yeah, and their lack of investment in the city and the supporters. So I've been mad at them for a couple of years.
Well, maybe they'll get a stimulus check. Now, let me talk to you about your New York Post column. It had a great stat in it, which I did not know before. You actually say the American Petroleum Institute study shows that the oil and gas industry contributes $34.7 billion to the Pennsylvania economy, with more than 1,347 businesses across the entire state as part of the supply chain, and as many as 600,000 jobs are at risk with the fracking ban imminent. That is really, Pennsylvania still voted for Biden. I don't get it.
Yeah, but barely. Pennsylvania is a state that's on the cusp. In 2016, Donald Trump barely won. In 2020, Joe Biden barely won. And I will argue forever and a day that Donald Trump lost the state on the backs of senior citizens. That's where he lost the vote, and not within his coalition.
So why do you think seniors didn't vote for him?
I think a lot of it had to do with comportment. You look at the numbers, you see how much they moved away from them. Seniors tend to not vote for themselves as much as they vote for their children and their grandchildren. And I think that, my interview showed that a lot of them were just unhappy in particular with how he handled COVID. And for a lot of them, they thought, when he got COVID, he handled it with a lot of vigor, and at least what we saw. And while young conservatives, this was really interesting. While young conservatives under the age of 50 liked that, and that was very appealing to them. Those over the age of I shouldn't say 60, 50, those over the age of 60 did not like it. Probably, I'm going to guess, this is me speculating now, but I'm going to speculate that has to do with, a lot of people didn't have that ability to handle it with that vigor.
Oh, no. In fact, a lot of seniors died. Let me ask you something, Salena. I've been covering closely the Missouri Senate race. Had Eric Schmidt on last week and Jason Smith the week before. I think the only Republican who can lose Missouri is named Greitens. But Mayor Quentin Lucas of Kansas City was also on. He'll be a formidable candidate. And I've had on everyone in Ohio, and I think that's going to be like a line of 30. But I don't know who's running in Pennsylvania for Pat Toomey's seat. Is there anybody? Is there a Republican running?
I mean, they haven't all announced yet, but I'm definitely expecting Sean Parnell to run, and I think he would be a formidable candidate in our home state. He barely lost to Connor Lamb. He has an incredible ability to not only be appealing to the conservative populace that we talk about a lot, but he's also very appealing to suburban voters. He started out as a Marco Rubio supporter and an advocate for him early on in the campaign in 2016. So I suspect he's going to be a formidable candidate for U.S. Senate. And on Democrat side, you have, I think everyone in the kitchen sink is running for Senate.
So you think Sean Parnell's going to, see, I have not read that anywhere. And that would be good news because I don't think any of the congressmen actually carry enough of swagger or the right demo. Sean Parnell's the right demo. He's a young combat veteran, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Also a successful businessman. David Drucker had a piece yesterday in the Examiner about it. He's the one to watch in Pennsylvania, and I think he will be successful in that race.
Well, I'll have to start having him on. You gave me a tip this morning, Salena, and for that I am grateful. I'm sorry about your Pirates, but keep coming back. I hope you're right about Sean Parnell. I'll go look up the Drucker piece during the break and bring the news of it. I missed it, but yesterday I was watching Breaking Bad, The Masters, and The Mandalorian. So that was. I had a day that fetching Mrs. Hewitt with her sister, bringing up the rear on the move back to the Beltway, and so I had a full bachelor day.
You guys have to check out my piece with Ty Cobb's great-grandson in the Examiner. That was pretty interesting.
I will go and see. All things Salena Zito are at salenazito.com. Go and sign up for that. And I'll be right back, America. Hour number 2 of the Monday edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show straight ahead. Thank you, Salena.
On the Charlie Kirk Show.
Woodrow Wilson was more concerned with his legacy than what was right for America. He believed the founding fathers were misled. He was the first president in American history to actually philosophically and politically challenge the beliefs of the founding fathers. Woodrow Wilson and Joe Biden are very similar. They care about a radical restructuring and redefinition of America, and I'm going to say something controversial that I have not said publicly. You ready for this? Joe Biden is governing much more radically than Barack Obama. Let me say that again. Joe Biden is governing much more radically. Is that the right way to say it? Much more radically? I guess that's correct. Just doesn't sound right. He's governing more radically than Barack Obama.